All right, guys. So we're gonna tonight. You're gonna basically be doing the notes at home and some sample problems at home. So tomorrow, when you come to the classroom, you're gonna be doing what you typically would be doing for homework. We're gonna go over this. Tomorrow, there will also be an opportunity for you to have any questions on ionic nomenclature for the quiz on Friday answered. All right, so make sure you review your ionic nomenclature as well as listen to this. There are going to be a couple things in this that you're going to need to write down in your notebook in order to get points for homework credit. Okay, so we're left with a general compound, and we already know how to distinguish between ionic compounds and covalent compounds. One of the reasons why this is so important is distinguishing is because each type of compound has its own set of rules for nomenclature. Tonight, we're going to focus on the covalent compounds. Covalent compounds are also known as molecular compounds. They're made up of just nonmetals. The smallest piece is a molecule, and they can't be held together because of opposite charges. Remember, in covalent compounds, we deal with atoms sharing electrons. And because they can't be held together because of opposite charges, we can't use the charges to figure out how many of each atom we have. However, the name itself of a molecular compound tells you the number of atoms that the compound has, because it uses prefixes to tell us the number. The great part about covalent compounds is that they're easier, as long as you only use covalent nomenclature for covalent compounds. What you need to do now is pause this and write down the number and the prefix for that number in your notebook. I'll be checking for this. Now, the rules for writing covalent compound names is to use a prefix to represent the subscript of the first element written. If the first element only has one of the atoms in the formula, you do not need to use the subscript mono for the first element written. Once you write the prefix, you're going to then name the element. Then you're going to use a prefix to represent the subscript of the second element. And then you're going to name the second element as if it were an anion. You're going to replace whatever ending it has with an "-ide" ending. I would pause this now and write down these rules. What we're going to do now is we're going to try a few examples. The first example is N2O. So we're going to use the prefix di to represent 2. We're going to name the element. Nitrogen. And then we're going to use a prefix to represent the second element number, or subscript, which is 1. And then we're going to name the second element as if it were an anion. So it would be oxide. One thing we want to make sure we don't do is have a double O. So we don't want to write monoxide. We just write monoxide. The next sample is NO2. We have one nitrogen and two oxygens. Since the one nitrogen is in the first position, we're just going to call it nitrogen. We do not use the mono for that first element. We have two oxygens, so it will be nitrogen dioxide. Cl2O7. We're going to write the prefix for 2, which is di, name that first element, chlorine, use the prefix for 7, hepta, and then write the second element's name, oxide. You should have each of these three examples in your notebook. You will now try CBr4 and CO2 on your own. BaCl2 is a challenge question. Think whether you should use covalent nomenclature for this question. Now, to go opposite from the name to the formula, it's very easy. Diphosphorus pentoxide, we have di, so we know that we need the subscript of 2, and we have the element phosphorus. So P2. And pent is the prefix for 5. And we have oxide, which is oxygen, so we're going to have O5. Tetraiodine would be I4. Nonoxide would be O9. Sulfur hexafluoride, we don't have any prefix, so it's just sulfur, S. Hexa is the prefix for 6, and fluoride is fluorine, so we have SF6. I now want you to try the same thing for nitrogen trioxide, carbon tetrahydride, and phosphorus trifluoride. Put the answers to all 6 of these in your notebook. Also, as a little practice, write the formula for the ionic compound aluminum chloride. Remember, you cannot use prefixes for ionic compounds. You have to use the set of rules which we covered earlier this week. Okay, so for homework, you need to have the formulas for these 6, the names for the previous 6, and the list of rules and prefixes in your notebook. Have a good night. I will see you in class tomorrow.